Okay, here we go. Man, that reminded me. So first of all, thank you once again for doing this and being willing to share the testimony again, and also for taking time out of your schedule. So I just want to go on record talking about how it came about. You know, the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan had said one time that how many of his witness bearers are too silent. And he talked about how, most people who are around him who have witnessed certain things, that they don't say anything. And that, hearing the minister say that made me, inspired me rather, to invite Brother Jesse and Brother Rashad at different times to our city where they can just come and share what Allah has blessed them to actually witness of the, of the love, of the character of the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan. And when Rashad was here, and Brother Don happened to be here in the city as well, they shared your story. And I was always fascinated about the story. And in preparing for that lecture that I did last week, I called Brother Don just to get more details. And in talking to Brother Don, I was like, Brother Don and to Brother Rashad, I said, man, I can't tell this story as good as you all would. And after you saw the lecture, you said that there were some other key details that you wanted to make sure that it was said exactly. So he told me that you wanted to talk, and I'm thankful for the opportunity to talk to you. So this is how we get to this moment, and I wanted to get the actual testimony on record. So for those, this is our sister Detective Kim Cook, and you can just start off just giving us just a brief little background about yourself. You can go right into your story.
Well, peace to everyone that's listening. I was a member of a church for 17 years, approximately 17 years, and realizing that I wasn't being taught the truth. And I want to be able to tell my testimony, because I believe every test is a testimony. And a lot of times we've been taught something that is not so. So I just want to be able to tell my story so other people who may have or currently experiencing believing in something that they've been taught or been raised up on not to be so. So my story goes as follows. I was working during the Caribbean Parade in 2010, which was considered Labor Day, and I walked up to a couple of gentlemen that were dressed in suits, and I thought that they worked on my job. So I said to them, "Are you guys working?" And they said to me, "Yes." So I then said to them, "Well, what unit do you work at?" And they said to me, "We don't work on the job that you think that we work on." So another young man, at that time I did not know his name, but his name is Don Enoch, came over, and one of the brothers said to Don, "Are you going to thank the sister?" And he said, thank her for what? And they said, "For working. She's a detective." And he said, "Oh, thank you, sister." So I says to Brother Don at the time, being sarcastic, "Are you one of those Farrakhan people?" And then he said, "Do you mean the Honorable Minister Louis Farrakhan?" And I said, "Yes." And I said to him, I always wanted to meet that man. Growing up, my grandmother used to play his messages on TV. So I then said to him, "Well, I don't really want to talk to you because y'all like to convert people." And he said, "Convert people? What do you mean?" And I said, "Yeah, y'all like to convert people. Y'all like to make people do what y'all want them to do." And I went on and on and on. And at that time, that was my belief. So he said to me, he asked me for my phone number. So at that time, I was a little hesitant to give him my number. But he said to me, "Well, how do you expect to meet the minister if we don't exchange numbers?" So at that point, I said, "Yes, you're absolutely right." So we exchanged numbers. I departed. later on that evening, I'm watching the Eyewitness News, and I see the Governor Patterson at that time was Governor Patterson on TV, and Don Enoch happened to be standing by him. So I'm thinking at that time, prior to me seeing him on TV, I just thought that he was just making something up, that he had no way to get in contact with the minister, and just judging him based on what I thought to be so. So I called one of my supervisors that was with me at the time, and I said, I think this guy may be somebody. I said, because I just saw him on the news with the governor. And I said, I clowned him. I said, oh, my goodness, what have I done? So maybe about 10 days later, I received a phone call from Brother Don Enoch, and he said to me, Detective, I think it may be possible that you may be able to meet the minister. So at that time, I was much humble than I was the day that I met him. And I was working that day, so I told him that he can come over to the precinct in which I was working at that particular time to visit me. And he said that he needed to bring someone to have a conversation with me before meeting with the minister. So I was like, that's fine. So approximately about 8, 9 o'clock that evening, he calls me. We meet in front of the precinct. And Brother Rashad, which I did not know that was his name at the time, said to me, why did I want to meet the minister, Louis Farrakhan? And I said, because growing up, that was something that I always wanted to do. I wanted to meet this man. So he says to me, well, I'm going to have to pray on it. So when he said that, knowing that the God that I serve, I walked away, not saying anything to him. I said, God, let it be in your will. Let your will be done. And I left it as that. About midnight that night, I received a phone call from Don Enoch telling me that the meeting with the minister had been approved, where I should meet at and the time, which was the next morning. I met with them. I was taken to New Jersey, and I waited around for some hours. And during the time that me waiting, I had went to get a T-shirt because I said no one is going to believe that I met this man. So I said if I can get him to sign the T-shirt, maybe somebody would believe it. So Don comes downstairs and was like, where are you? You were supposed to meet with the minister. You better hurry up. So when I go upstairs, again, not knowing what to expect, but I want to rewind just a little bit. Every January since 1994, I have been fasting for 30 days. But this particular January, which was January of 2010, I fast about 2:30 or 3 o'clock in the morning. God woke me up out of my bed and told me to go to the Bible. And the first scripture that he told me to read was the book of the woman, the message where it stated that the woman had the issue of blood, the scripture. So I read that. Then I went back in the bed because I was tired. I get back in the bed, and the Lord said to me, get up and go to the book of Ruth. I read it once. He said, no, read it 3 times so that you can get a full understanding of what I'm saying to you. And then after I read it, he said, you will meet me in the flesh. So now I'm fast forwarding to go upstairs in the elevator with a few brothers. They bring me inside to meet with the minister. They check, they had checked to make sure I didn't have anything on me that I didn't supposed to have. And so as I walked in the door, I started feeling a burning sensation, which was the same burning sensation that I had felt when I was reading these scriptures. So as I tried to proceed to walk towards the minister, I couldn't walk. Something had taken over my body completely, and it was an experience I had never, ever experienced in my life. So I realized that I'm by a wall, and I'm sliding down the wall, but I cannot control myself. The minister says to me, daughter, come to me. But I tried to come, but I couldn't come So he comes over to me and he lifts me up. And as he lifts me up and he holds me and he starts to pray. As he's praying, the same exact voice that I heard in January, that God said that I was going to meet him in the flesh, he said, I told you you were going to meet me in the flesh. I began to cry and cry. And the minister asked me how was my daughters, a conversation that I had never had with this man, that he even knew I had daughters. And he began to pray and told me that my children would be fine and everything in my life would be okay. So as I walked away, I continued to cry. We were in Newark, New Jersey. I have never in my life cried around anyone that I did not know and wasn't able to control my feelings. So I cried literally from New Jersey to my house, which was an hour and a half away. They dropped me off, and it was an hour, and I was still crying. I get in my car, and I still cried. I got in my bed and cried myself to sleep. The next day, I woke up, and it was just a different feeling that I had, just about life and just about me as a person wanting to do better with myself. After that, moving fast forwarding, I get a call that for me to come and meet with the minister at his palace. And I met with him at his palace, and as I'm sitting there at the table with him, I get this burning sensation again. As I get the burning sensation, my legs start to tap up and down. I'm rocking back and forth. I can't control myself again. And I know it was God. It was the Spirit of God. He was dealing with me. Moving fast forward, I meet with the minister another time in his office in Chicago, and I get that burning sensation again. So at this point, I realized that this is the true man of God, because everything that I had experienced prior was something that God had already showed me. So at this point, I'm saying to myself, everything that I've been taught years ago and what I'm feeling is something different. So I begin to start listening to more of the minister and his messages and realizing that this man is the man that truly is a true man of God, and that everything that I've been taught was a lie. I was taught that, you run around the church, you're shouting and you're dancing, and you don't have to do all of that to be able to know who God is. It's about sharing and giving back, loving your brother, loving your sister. That's what God is about. Moving, fast forwarding, again, I go for my very first mammogram, and they tell me that they found a lump in my breast, which my mother passed away many years ago from breast cancer. So when I find out that I have a lump in my breast, they don't know exactly if it's cancerous or not. So they schedule me for surgery. Before the surgery comes, after the surgery comes, they remove it. They said it was benign, which was in my left breast. But I go back for a follow-up, and they tell me now you have a lump in your right breast. The minister calls me after I have my first surgery, and I was crying. And he says to me, you are healed. By the stripes you are healed. And he said, don't weep. Everything is going to work out. And I cried and I cried. I was so weak in my bed, couldn't move, depressed, sad. I got that phone call. Within 10 minutes, I was up like never before. I go back to the doctor. I saw with my own eyes the tumor in my right breast. It was the size of a quarter. When I go back to the doctor, as God bear my witness, there was no tumor at all. Not, it was there, it shrunk, they took it out, it wasn't cancer, it wasn't a tumor at all. The nurse that took the sonogram said, no, something is not right. She go and get a doctor, and the doctor said, you must have misdiagnosed her. And the lady said to me, didn't you see what I saw? And I said, yes, I saw it. You turned the screen around and showed it to me. He said, it can't be so because there's nothing there. I said, no, the God I serve removed it. So with that being said, is that in life, you have to be able to build a relationship with God so that God can show you the truth and show you the way to go and which way to go. Because without God, we're absolutely nothing. And from that moment forward, I have never left the side of the minister. Any opportunity that I can go see him, meet with him, I do it. Because I know who he is. And the blessings that come with it. And he told Don that I reminded him of the women that was around Jesus at the time of his death. And I felt that was so profound. Because for the man of God to tell me that I reminded him of women that was around Jesus, that's a blessing. That's huge. And I'm honored to be able to know that that's how this man feels about me. And that's my story.
Wow, thank you, Sister Kim. So other people who are here are greatly impacted by your words. So we appreciate you for taking the time out to actually share it. Any other closing words before we close everything down?
To know that God is who he say he is, and he is a man that cannot lie. No matter what it is that you're going through in life, God is the author and the finisher of all things. He'll never leave you. He'll never forsake you. And the Minister Louis Farrakhan is truly the true man of God. Peace.
Thank you, sis. So let me stop so we're going to stop the recording at this time. A second. I'm still trying to stop this recording.
Okay, no problem. Take your time.